My name is Denise Dwyer. I'm 30 years old. I never thought I'd hear from my sister Kelly again. Not after 12 years of silence, not after the way we parted. But there it was, sitting in my mailbox like a white grenade wrapped in gold foil. An envelope thick and expensive with my name written in looping calligraphy that felt almost mocking. Inside, Kelly Morgan requests the pleasure of your company at her engagement celebration. For a long moment, I just stood there on my porch, the late afternoon sun bleeding over the horizon. I turned the card over in my hands again and again as if the paper might whisper an explanation. Kelly Morgan, 32 now, I guess. Last time I saw her face to face, I was 18, storming out of our parents' house with nothing but a suitcase and my fury. Why now? Why me? The party was at Le Jardin, one of the most prestigious restaurants in the city. Valet parking crystal chandeliers, a place we used to pass as kids and whisper someday. I had to read the invitation 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The smart part of me wanted to tear it up and toss it in the trash. But another part, the hopeful, wounded teenager still somewhere inside me, whispered maybe this was her way of reaching out. Maybe she wanted to fix things. Maybe she wanted to be sisters again. That night, I called Aunt Sarah, the only family member I'd stayed in touch with. Aunt Sarah, I got an invitation. My voice cracked more than I intended. From Kelly. There was a pause, then a sigh that carried years of knowing. Denise, honey, maybe she's trying to change. People grow. Sometimes life softens them, or hardens them. I stared at the invitation lying on the coffee table. You really think she wants to reconnect? I think you'll regret it more if you don't go, she said gently. And so I decided I'd go. Not for Kelly, for me. To close some kind of circle, even if it ended in silence. The next evening, I slipped into a simple black dress I usually reserve for business dinners. In the mirror, I caught myself adjusting the neckline too many times, as if I were a teenager trying to impress. Why do I even care what she thinks? I muttered. Le Jardin was every bit as dazzling as its reputation, gleaming glass doors, a doorman in crisp uniform cars, pulling up one after another. My heels clicked on the marble as I walked to the reception desk. Good evening, the hostess said with a professional smile. I'm here for the Morgan engagement party. Denise Dwyer. She scanned the list, frowned, then checked again. I'm sorry, your name isn't here. The words punched the air out of my chest. There must be some mistake. Here, I pulled out the invitation, my hands trembling. Before she could respond, a familiar voice sliced through the air. What are you doing here? I turned, and there she was. Kelly. Exactly as I remembered, only sharpened. Designer gown, hugging her frame hair, sculpted like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She looked perfect, untouchable. You invited me, I said, holding up the card. She laughed a laugh that wasn't kind. Oh, Denise, how could you even imagine I'd invite you to a place like this? Look around. These are respected, important people. You don't belong here. The receptionist's smile faltered. She busied herself with imaginary paperwork, trying not to exist. Kelly, you sent this. My voice dropped lower, tighter. Why send me an invitation if you didn't want me here? Her smile spread like poison. To show you what you'll never have. To remind you where I am and where you are. Now leave before you embarrass yourself further. And then our parents walked by. My mother in a shimmering gown, my father in his tailored suit. Mom glanced at me briefly, lifted a hand in a polite little wave as though I were an old neighbor she hadn't seen in years. Dad didn't even look at me. Something inside me went very, very still. I turned without another word, keeping my chin high until I reached the parking lot. Only when the car door shut around me did my mask crack and the ache flood in. But even through the humiliation, I felt a grim sense of confirmation. Of course, this was who she still was. Of course they hadn't changed. People like Kelly don't change, not in 12 years, not in a lifetime. As I drove home, the memories clawed their way back. The favoritism, the lies she told that I was punished for the day they gave away my college fund for her once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That night, staring at the invitation still lying crumpled on my kitchen counter, a thought whispered through me. They think I don't belong in their world. Maybe it's time they found out I built one of my own. The next morning, I woke late sunlight slipping through the blinds like it had no sympathy for my mood. I padded into the kitchen, still in pajamas, and poured coffee into a chipped mug I'd had since college. My phone buzzed. Aunt Sarah's name lit up the screen. Denise, honey, why didn't you come in last night? I saw you at the door. I sank into a chair. Because Kelly didn't actually invite me. My name wasn't on the list. She told me I didn't belong there. Oh, sweetheart. Aunt Sarah's voice cracked with anger she tried to swallow. That girl, she never misses a chance to wound. But why let her think you're still small? Why didn't you tell her about your life now? I smiled faintly, swirling the coffee. Because it's none of their business. They didn't ask, they never wanted to know. After we hung up, I stared at the crumpled invitation. Kelly thought she'd humiliated me. She had no idea what my life had become. By 9, I was pulling into the lot of a Victorian house I'd restored and turned into my office. From the outside, it looked like something from an old film, arched windows, ivy, trailing the brick-polished brass handles that gleamed in the morning sun. Inside, sunlight spilled across oak floors, catching framed photographs of ballrooms, gardens, and chandeliers events my company had hosted. Morgan Event Spaces, my empire. I walked past my receptionist's desk, exchanging smiles, then climbed the curved staircase to my office. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a painting. I set down my coffee, exhaled, and let myself breathe in the truth of what I'd built. It hadn't come easy. I remembered nights in college working double shifts at a diner, coming home to textbooks I could barely keep my eyes open to read. When my scholarship covered tuition, I scraped together every tip to pay rent and buy ramen. Then the dream began with 3 friends and a dingy hall on the edge of town. We painted the walls ourselves, scrubbing until our hands blistered. Our first booking was a child's birthday party. $50 profit split 4 ways. Hardly glamorous, but it was a start. One by one, my friends drifted off to real jobs. I stayed. I bought their shares. I kept going. I saved until I could buy my first property, a modest hall with peeling paint but good bones. And then came my boldest risk, the Blackstone House, a fire-damaged neo-Gothic building everyone else called a money pit. I saw potential. I bid everything I had lived on instant noodles and poured every dime into restoration. 6 months later, its arched windows glowed against stained glass, shimmering like jewels. Now it was the crown jewel of my business, the most sought-after venue in the city. We booked weddings a year in advance. The mayor's daughter had married there. A Hollywood studio had shot scenes in its ballroom. Every booking was a reminder I hadn't just survived without my family, I had thrived. That afternoon, my office manager, Maria, knocked a stack of inquiries in her hands. "Denise, you'll want to see this one." I took the paper, glanced at the name, and froze. Kelly Morgan. She was requesting availability and pricing for several of our venues, and her top choice, the Blackstone House. I stared at the email, a slow, dangerous smile pulling at my lips. The irony was almost poetic. The very place where my success burned brightest, she wanted it for her wedding. Maria raised an eyebrow. Should I decline? "Not yet," I murmured, leaning back in my chair. "Tell her Blackstone might have an opening, but it could take time to confirm. Make her wait." Maria smirked knowingly. "You're going to enjoy this, aren't you?" Maybe I said softly, almost to myself. Or maybe it's finally time she learns that not everything in this world belongs to her. The office around me hummed with phones, ringing keyboards, clicking plans being made. But under it all was the steady beat of something sharper, the thought that Kelly had no idea whose shadow she was walking into. And this time I wasn't the little sister begging to be seen. I was the one holding all the cards. For the next few weeks, I let Maria handle the emails. Kelly was eager, almost desperate to secure the Blackstone House. Every response from us was carefully measured. "Yes, the date looks promising. We're still resolving details with the prior booking. Thank you for your patience." Every line strung her along each delay, twisting the leash a little tighter. Meanwhile, life went on at Morgan Event Spaces. Spring was our busiest season. 3 weddings each weekend, plus corporate luncheons, charity galas, and birthday celebrations. My days blurred into 12-hour marathons of florists arriving late, caterers panicking over missing linens, and brides crying over misplaced veils. And yet I thrived on it, crisis after crisis, and I was the one who kept it all from unraveling. One evening, after wrapping up a rehearsal dinner, I lingered in the Blackstone ballroom. The chandeliers glowed against the Gothic arches, their light spilling like liquid gold. I traced my fingers along the stone pillars, remembering the soot-blackened walls when I'd first bought it. Now people gasped when they walked in. They whispered, "How did you get this place?" And I smiled, never telling the full story. It struck me then Kelly had no idea that I was standing here at the heart of something she wanted. For years, she'd painted me as small as lesser, and now she was unknowingly begging to stand in a world I had built. A bitter laugh caught in my throat. Was it revenge I craved, for justice, or maybe just the satisfaction of being seen. Maria appeared in the doorway. She emailed again, asking for confirmation. I took the phone, read Kelly's message, brimming with exclamation marks about how perfect the Blackstone was, how it was her dream venue. Tell her. I paused, the corners of my mouth curling. Tell her we may have an opening after all. But before we finalize, I require an in-person meeting with the bride, at the venue. Maria arched a brow. You're really going to do this? I'm going to show her. My voice was steady, colder than I expected. She told me I didn't belong in a place like this. Let's see how she reacts when she realizes I own it. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, the ceiling shadows shifting as cars passed outside. Part of me whispered this was petty beneath me. I'd built a life of substance, success, independence. Why drag myself back into her games? But another part, the part that remembered standing at Lujardin with my name erased from the list. The part that remembered my parents waving me off like a stranger, burned hotter. They thought I was invisible, forgotten, disposable. Tomorrow they would learn otherwise. The day of the meeting, I arrived at the Blackstone house an hour early. I wanted everything perfect. Sunlight spilled through the stained glass windows, painting the ballroom floor in jeweled fragments of crimson and sapphire. The scent of polished wood and fresh flowers lingered in the air. I stood by the tall windows overlooking the gardens, heart steady but sharp with anticipation. At exactly 2 o'clock, I heard voices echoing from the entrance. Kelly's sharp, confident tone carried above the others. My mother's soft flutter, my father's deep baritone, and another male unfamiliar, her fiancé. Their footsteps drew nearer, heels and shoes clicking against the marble. Oh my God, this place is incredible. Kelly gasped, her voice dripping with delight. This is exactly what I want for my wedding. Quite impressive, my mother agreed, though there was a cautious edge in her tone. I imagine it's expensive. Worth every penny, Kelly chirped. Brett, honey, look at these ceilings. I turned slowly, letting the silence hang for a beat before speaking. I'm glad you like it. The reaction was instant. Kelly's mouth fell open, her painted smile curdling. My mother went pale. My father froze mid-step. Denise. My mother's voice cracked like fragile glass. What are you doing here? I let the question breathe before answering, savoring the tension. I work here. Kelly recovered first, though her laugh rang hollow. Oh, I get it. You're on staff. What? Cleaning up before the real meeting. My gaze locked with hers. In a sense, yes. Cleaning up. But not the way you think. I stepped forward, pulling a folder from the table. This building, this Blackstone house, you're standing in my property. I own it. The silence that followed was deafening. The chandelier hummed faintly, the only sound. That's impossible, Kelly snapped. You're lying. I opened the folder, slid the papers across a nearby table, my business license, Morgan Event Spaces listed. With 6 properties owned, 3 managed. The Blackstone house highlighted as our premier venue. My father leaned closer, reading his face, shifting from disbelief to something that almost looked like shame. We thought you were still waitressing. If you'd cared enough to ask, I said, voice low but sharp. You'd have known I haven't been a waitress since college. But you never asked, did you? My mother's hands twisted at her clutch. Denise, please. We're family. Surely you can make an exception. We'll pay full price. More if necessary. A bitter laugh escaped me. Family. Where was family when you handed my college fund to Kelly? When you believed every lie she told? When you walked past me at Lujardin like I was a stranger? That was a long time ago, my father said, his jaw tight. We should move forward. I met his eyes. We are moving forward, without each other. Kelly's face was red now, her fists clenched. You can't do this. My wedding is in a month. Invitations are sent with this address. You have to rent it to me. Actually, I don't. My voice was calm, almost gentle. And I won't. Her fury broke like a dam. You're trying to ruin me. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. I tilted my head, studying her. Funny. I built a life without you. Without any of you. The only person jealous here is standing in front of me. Kelly's lips trembled, her eyes flashing. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone what a cruel, bitter person you are. You'll regret this. I stepped closer, my voice dropping so only she could hear. The difference, Kelly, I don't need to destroy you. You'll do that all by yourself. For a moment, the air felt charged, brittle as glass. Then I turned, walking toward the tall windows again, dismissing them with my back. This meeting is over, I said. You can see yourselves out. Behind me, I heard Kelly's ragged breath. my mother's muffled sob, my father's silence heavy as stone. Then the shuffle of their footsteps retreating down the hall. The door shut, leaving me alone in the vast ballroom. I exhaled, finally, the weight of 12 years shifting inside me. But even as I stood there victorious, a whisper gnawed at the edges of my mind. Kelly wasn't the type to retreat quietly. And I had just lit a fuse. The very next evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Notifications stacked one after another, a storm I hadn't anticipated. Kelly had gone on the offensive. Her post was long and dramatic, dripping with self-pity. My own sister is trying to destroy my wedding. She owns venues and is refusing to rent to me out of jealousy and spite. Family means nothing to her. She only cares about money. Imagine being betrayed like this by blood. I sat back in my chair, staring at the words glowing on the screen. The manipulation was flawless. She painted herself the victim, me, the villain. For a moment, a pang of dread fluttered through me. Would people believe her? Would they see me as heartless, petty? But then I scrolled through the comments. Wait, Denise owns the Blackstone house. That's amazing. How did we not know she's that successful? Does anyone have her business contact? I've been trying to book the Blackstone for months. Honestly, sounds like Kelly's jealous. Maybe her sister's just setting boundaries. The tide was turning. Every comment twisted Kelly's narrative until it crumbled. Distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were chiming in. Proud of you, Denise. Didn't know you'd built something so incredible. A hollow laugh slipped from my throat. The truth had a way of clawing to the surface no matter how she tried to bury it. Maria leaned in through my office door. You've got 3 new inquiries today, all from people who saw Kelly's post. Figures. I rubbed my temples. Sometimes the best marketing is free. That night, Aunt Sarah called. Her tone was sharper than usual, protective. I saw the nonsense Kelly put online. She's furious, but honestly it backfired. Everyone's impressed with you. I hesitated. It shouldn't matter, but it feels good. For once people see me without Kelly's shadow smothering the truth. Denise, Aunt Sarah said firmly, don't let her pull you down to her level. You've already won by living well. I closed my eyes, the ballroom of Blackstone still vivid in my memory. Their stunned faces, Kelly's rage. Maybe. But part of me, I trailed off. Part of me wants her to feel what I felt all those years. Aunt Sarah's voice softened. Be careful. Revenge tastes sweet at first, but it sours quick. Ask yourself what you really want. I didn't answer, not because I didn't know, but because the answer scared me. The following morning, Maria placed a fresh stack of papers on my desk. Cancellations, confirmations, inquiries. Oh, and this. She slid over a card. It was from Kelly again. Another venue request, different property this time. I laughed, shaking my head. She doesn't give up, does she? Should I decline outright? No. I leaned back thinking. String her along. Slowly. Let her twist. Maria smirked. You're enjoying this too much. Maybe, I admitted. Or maybe this is just balance. By that afternoon, another storm brewed online. Kelly had doubled down, posting again this time, trying to rally sympathy. But instead of support, more people commented about my business, sharing photos from events, tagging my website. Within an hour, her entire post was deleted. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated. But instead an emptiness lingered, like standing in a room after the music ends, the silence louder than the noise before. That evening, Aunt Sarah called again. Her voice carried a spark. You know what we should do? Host a family reunion. Invite all the relatives Kelly cut from her wedding list. Show them your world, Denise. Show them who you are now. I hesitated the same day as her wedding. Exactly the same day, Aunt Sarah said, almost gleeful, let people choose where they'd rather be. I stood at the window of my office, the city lights glittering below. My reflection in the glass looked calm, collected, but inside my pulse quickened. Part of me recoiled at the pettiness. Another part whispered, let her feel it. Just once. Let her stand in the shadow she cast over you. I turned back to Aunt Sarah's voice. All right, let's do it. Let's host a reunion. And as I said it, a thrill curled in my chest, sharp and undeniable. Because this time Kelly wouldn't be the one writing the story. The day of Kelly's wedding dawned like a painting. Clear skies, gentle breeze, sunlight bright enough to make the stained glass at Blackstone blaze with color, the kind of day brides prayed for. But Kelly wasn't in town to enjoy it. Word had spread every reputable venue was booked solid thanks to her own arrogance. She'd been forced to settle for a place called Meadowbrook Farms, 45 minutes outside the city, rustic in the worst way. No catering staff, no luxury amenities, shuttle buses struggling to keep up with guests. Meanwhile, the Blackstone house was alive. By late afternoon, the grand ballroom glowed under chandeliers, tables dressed in crisp white linen and fresh floral centerpieces. The gardens outside twinkled with string lights as dusk settled. One by one, relatives arrived, faces I hadn't seen in over a decade. Cousins, uncles, great aunts, family friends who'd watched me grow up. Denise Aunt Marie embraced me, her perfume sharp and nostalgic. "We had no idea this was your place. It's stunning." Uncle George shook his head in disbelief. "Last we heard you were in college. Now look at you." I smiled politely, the words tasting strange. For years, I had imagined conversations like these vindication, recognition. But now that they were happening, I found myself craving something quieter. Not praise, just acknowledgement that I wasn't invisible anymore. Cousin Rachel, flushed with annoyance, arrived next. "You won't believe it, Kelly called last week to uninvite me. Said she had to adjust the guest list. After I already bought a dress." The bitterness in her laugh matched something deep inside me. As the reunion buzzed with chatter, laughter. Clinking glasses, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Aunt Sarah, stationed at Meadowbrook Farms, out of curiosity. "Buses are late. Half the guests are stranded. Bride not happy." I slid the phone away, returning to the party. Music swelled. Children darted across the dance floor, and older relatives swapped stories. The Blackstone felt alive, not just with celebration, but with belonging. My belonging. Then at 9, my phone rang. Kelly. I slipped into my office, closing the door before answering. "You did this on purpose," she screamed before I could say hello. Her voice cracked through the receiver, shrill and panicked. "You planned the reunion to ruin my wedding." I leaned against the desk, calm. "I don't know what you're talking about. The reunion is just for the relatives you cut from your list." I only opened my doors. "You've always been jealous of me. Always. Even now you can't stand that it's my day. Is that why you erased me from the family? Pretended I didn't exist?" My voice was low measured. "Because I was jealous, or because you were afraid one day I wouldn't need you anymore." Her silence was sharp, then she spat, "You'll regret this, I swear it." And the line went dead. For a long moment I stood there, the echoes of her rage buzzing in my ear. A strange calm settled over me. Not triumph, not guilt, just clarity. Kelly had built her world on appearances. Tonight those appearances were unraveling. And me, I was surrounded by people she had discarded, people who were choosing to celebrate here with me. I returned to the ballroom, where Aunt Sarah raised a glass, her eyes bright. To Denise, she said, her voice carrying over the crowd, "Who built something from nothing and gave us all a place to come home to?" The cheer that followed was thunderous. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. In that moment, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like reclamation. But somewhere deep inside, a whisper still lingered. Kelly wouldn't forget tonight. She wouldn't forgive it. And this war between us, it was far from over. The morning after the reunion, my phone was clogged with missed calls and voicemails. 10 from Kelly, 4 from my mother, 2 from my father. I didn't press play. I didn't need to. I could already imagine the chorus blame dressed as concern outrage, disguised as reconciliation. But one message stood apart, an email. From Brett Morgan, subject my apologies. I clicked it open. Ms. Dwyer. I want to apologize for what happened at the Blackstone house. I had no idea about your history with Kelly or your family. In fact, Kelly never even mentioned having a sister until recently. I respect your decision not to host the wedding. Best wishes, Brett. I stared at the words, stunned. Kelly had erased me so completely she hadn't even told her fiancé I existed. For a moment, I felt weightless, like the ground had been cut out from under me. To be forgotten was one thing. To be deliberately erased, that was something else entirely. Aunt Sarah called that afternoon, her voice softer than usual. "Denise, you should know your parents are rattled. They don't understand how you became this successful without them. They're ashamed, though they'll never say it outright." "They don't get to be ashamed now," I replied flatly. "They weren't ashamed when they handed Kelly my tuition, or when they let her humiliate me at 18. But are you sure you want to carry this fight forever?" Aunt Sarah's words lingered. "Revenge can keep you tied to people you'd rather be free from." I sank into my office chair, gazing at the Blackstone's empty ballroom through the window. Last night, it had been alive with laughter, cousins reconnecting, relatives raising glasses. But now in the silence, her question echoed. Was this what I wanted? To keep replaying the same wounds, dressed up in different battles? Yet when I remembered Kelly's voice on the phone, sharp, venomous, promising I'd regret crossing her, the fire reignited in my chest. Later that evening, I listened to one of the voicemails, curiosity overcoming me. my mother's voice trembling. "Denise, please, can we meet?" "We were wrong, I see that now. But you can't shut us out forever. We're family." I let the message finish, then deleted it. Family. The word felt more like a weapon than a comfort. Still that night, as I walked the length of the Blackstone ballroom alone, my heels echoing against the polished floors, doubt pressed against me. Had I gone too far? Was the reunion necessary, or had I twisted the knife deeper than it ever needed to go? I paused under the chandelier, staring at my reflection in its prisms. Strong, successful, untouchable. And yet behind my eyes, a flicker of the 18-year-old me still lingered, still aching, still raw. One truth crystallized in that moment: Kelly wouldn't stop. Neither would my parents. I had crossed a line with them, and they would either reach for me or push me further away. Either way, the reckoning was coming. The following morning, my phone rang again, but this time it wasn't Kelly or my parents. It was a reporter from the City Business Journal. "We've heard about your story," she said brightly. "A woman who built one of the most successful event companies in town from nothing. We'd love to feature you in our upcoming issue on women entrepreneurs." For a moment, I was silent. My story out in the open in print undeniable. No longer something hidden in the shadows of my family's silence. "Yes," I said finally, my voice steady. "I'd love that." When the call ended, I sat back in my chair staring out at the city skyline. 12 years ago, I'd walked away from home with a suitcase and a heart full of anger. Now I had buildings, a business, a life on my own terms. That evening, the Blackstone house was quiet. The aftermath of the reunion still lingered. Flowers fading in their vases' chairs stacked the faint scent of champagne in the air. I walked slowly through the grand hall, my fingers trailing over the stone pillars I had once scrubbed clean of soot. I thought about Aunt Sarah's toast: family isn't always blood. It's the people who show up. Those words echoed as I paused beneath the chandelier light scattering across the polished floor. Last night, the hall had been filled with laughter, with people who hadn't been part of my life in years, but who had chosen to come for me. And yet my phone buzzed again. Voicemails piling up. My father, gruff and weary. "We need to talk. My mother." Her voice brittle. "Please don't shut us out." Kelly seething through clenched teeth. "You haven't won, Denise. You never will." I didn't answer. Not tonight. Because tonight wasn't about them. It was about me, the girl who had once been told she wasn't smart enough for college, who had been left behind, erased, forgotten. The woman who had rebuilt her life, brick by brick, contract by contract, until she stood here not as their discarded daughter, but as her own creation. I walked to my office, set down the phone, and poured myself a glass of wine. Through the tall windows, the city glowed alive with possibilities. Maybe one day I would face them. Maybe one day I'd forgive, or maybe not. But forgiveness wasn't the point anymore. The point was this: I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their apologies. I had carved out a place in this world that was mine, and no one could take that away. I raised the glass, whispering into the quiet hall, "Here's to the family we choose and the ones we build." And for the first time in years, I felt light, like I'd finally stepped out of the shadow they'd cast over me. Because maybe I hadn't lost a family after all. Maybe I'd simply built a better one.